Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my read through and review of The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show, including the Patreon feed of shows, as well as the merchandise store uh, on the website, which is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Also, please check out the links in every episode description to friends of the show, including the co-host of the show, Jen, the Arcane Observer, as well as Michael Strange and his show, Trouble Minds Radio, and the network, Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear many other amazing shows along with my own over there 24/7 online. So all those links can be found in the episode description. We are continuing our review of the books of Charles Fort and going on with this first one here. So, and thank you for posting that link in the chat there, Sweets. Also, everyone who listens to these shows, if you haven't joined the Discord yet, I'd definitely recommend it. That's where I post announcements about everything that I'm doing, and then let everyone know when I have to. Try to not do it too often, but when I have to cancel streams, or when I announce new streaming days, like I just did the other day. So, that's where everything is. Thank you for all the links there, Sweets, in the chat. So let's get back into reading The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. Keep in mind, what I'm reading here are the words and thoughts of not reading the thoughts. Anyway, what I'm reading here is written by another person. That would be Charles Fort. So everything in here is his views and thoughts on everything, and we may not all agree with them. So at times. And also, I'm going to mispronounce a lot of words from other countries, and I apologize for that as well. So, let me find where I was at here. And okay, there we go. It says, we read that Dr. Troost, Troost, visited the place and investigated. And this was a place where a red rain fell. Had a highly unpleasant smell, basically. So let's see here. Later, we're going to investigate some investigations, but never mind that now. Dr. Troost reported that the substance was clear blood and portions of flesh scattered upon tobacco fields. He argued that a whirlwind might have taken an animal up from one place, mauled it around, and have precipitated its remains somewhere else. But in volume 44, page 216 of the journal, there is an apology. The whole matter is, upon newspaper authority, said to have been a hoax by Negroes who had, and that's their words, pretended to have seen the shower for the sake of practicing upon the credulity, there we go, of their masters. This is, again, years and years ago, that they had scattered the decaying flesh of a dead hog over the tobacco fields. If we don't accept this datum, at least we see the sociologically necessary determination to have all falls accredited to earthly origins, even when there falls that don't fall. And I do want to point out here, that is a common thing I've seen throughout time, even up till today, where there's reports of things, and then other reports come out saying it was a hoax. And I don't doubt that in some cases this is what happened, but also I can't imagine that the whole idea of, oh, it's a hoax, has not been applied to actual phenomenon. I'm guessing that has happened more often than we might think. Just because there's just people having paranormal anomalous experiences all the time. So just based on that alone. But anyway, those are my thoughts. But getting back to the book here, that upon the 13th of August, 1819, something had fallen from the sky at Amherst, Massachusetts. It had been examined and described by Professor Graves, formerly lecturer at Dartmouth College. I think, wasn't that the one? Maybe that's not the one that Lovecraft based his college on in his stories. I might be wrong on that. Anyway, it was an object that had upon it a nap similar to that of milled cloth. Upon removing this nap, a buff-colored, pulpy substance was found. It had an offensive odor, and upon exposure to the air, turned to a vivid red. This thing was said to have fallen with a brilliant light. So now you're getting beyond just rains of possibly water and dust. Also, see the Edinburgh Philosophical Journal 5-295. In the, another publication here, can't pronounce, 1821-67. That's a M in a period. M. Arago accepts the datum and gives 4 instances of similar objects or substances said to have fallen from the sky, 2 of which we shall have with our data of gelatinous or viscous matter, and 2 of which I omit because it seems to me that the dates given are too far back. That's an interesting point there. I wonder. Okay. In the American Journal of Science 1-2-335 is Professor Graves' account, communicated by Professor Dewey, that upon the evening of August 13th, 1819, a light was seen in Amherst, a falling object, sound as if of an explosion. Keep in mind, this is way before anything that humans could make that could fly and have engines, as far as we know. In the home of Professor Dewey, this light was reflected upon a wall of a room in which were several members of Professor Dewey's family. The next morning, in Professor Dewey's front yard, in what is said to have been the only position from which the light that had been seen in the room the night before could have been reflected, was found a substance, in quotation marks, unlike anything before observed by anyone who saw it, end quotation marks. It was a bowl-shaped object, about 8 inches in diameter and 1 inch thick, bright buff-colored, and having upon it a fine nap. Upon removing this covering, a buff-colored pulpy substance of the consistency of soft soap was found, in quotation marks, of an offensive, suffocating smell, in quotation marks. A few minutes of exposure to the air changed the buff color to a livid color, in quotation marks, resembling venous blood, in quotation marks. It absorbed moisture quickly from the air and liquefied. For some of the chemic reactions, see the journal. There's another lost quasi-soul of a datum that seems to me to belong here. London Times, April 19th, 1836. Fall of fish that had occurred in the neighborhood of Allahabad, India. I'm probably saying that wrong. It is said that the fish were of the chalwa species, about a span in length and a seer in weight. And then it says, which I'm not sure what that means. They were dead and dry, or they had been such a long time out of water that we can't accept that they had been scooped out of a pond by a whirlwind, even though they were so definitely identified as of a known local species. Or they were not fish at all. I incline myself to the acceptance that they were not fish, but slender fish-shaped objects of the same substance as that which fell at Amherst. It is said that whatever they were, they could not be eaten, that, in quotation marks, in the pan, they turned to blood, in quotation marks. For details of this story, see the Journal of the Ariatic Society of Bengal, 1834-307. May 16th or 17th, 1834, is the date given in the journal. In the American Journal of Science, 1-25-362, occurs the inevitable damnation of the Amherst object. Professor Edward Hitchcock went to live in Amherst. He says that years later, another object, like the one said to have fallen in 1819, had been found at nearly the same place. Professor Hitchcock was invited by Professor Graves to examine it, exactly like the first one, corresponded in size and color and consistency. The chemic reactions were the same. Professor Hitchcock recognized it in a moment. It was a gelatinous fungus. Okay, here we go. He did not satisfy himself as to just the exact species it belonged to, but he predicted that similar fungi might spring up within 24 hours. But before evening, 2 others sprang up. Or we've arrived at one of the oldest of the exclusionist conventions, or Gnostic. We shall have many data of gelatinous substance said to have fallen from the sky. Almost always, the exclusionists argue that it was only nostoc, an alga, or in some respects, a fungus growth. The rival convention is, in quotation marks, spawn of frogs or of fishes. These two conventions, in quotation marks, these two conventions have made a strong combination. In instances where testimony was not convincing that gelatinous matter had been seen to fall, it was said that the gelatinous substance was nostoc and had been upon the ground in the first place. When the testimony was too good that it had fallen, it was said to be spawn that had been carried from one place to another in a whirlwind. Now, I can't say that nostoc is always greenish any more than I can say that blackbirds are always black. Having seen a white one, we shall quote a scientist who knew of flesh-colored nostoc, when so to know one was convenient. When we come to reported falls of gelatinous substances, I'd like it to be noticed how often they are described as whitish or grayish. In looking up the subject myself, I have read only of greenish nostoc. That's Nostoc. I'd never heard that word before. Said to be greenish in Webster's dictionary. Said to be blue-green in the New International Encyclopedia, in quotation marks. From bright green to olive green. Wow, can't talk. End quotation marks. And then in parentheses, Science Gossip 10-114. Green, Science Gossip 7-260. Greenish, Notes and Queries 1-11-219. It would seem acceptable that if many reports of white birds should occur, the birds are not blackbirds, even though there have been white blackbirds. Or that if often reported, grayish or whitish gelatinous substance is not nostoc and is not spawn if occurring in times unseasonable for spawn, in quotation marks, the Kentucky phenomenon, in quotation marks. So it was called in its day, and now we have an occurrence that attracted a great deal of attention in its own time. Usually these things of the accursed have been hushed up or disregarded, suppressed like the 7 black rains of Slains. That's another location from earlier in the book, and so earlier in the series. But upon March 3rd, 1876, something occurred in Bath County, Kentucky, that brought many newspaper correspondents to the scene. The substance that looked like beef that fell from the sky. I think I've heard of this one. Upon March 3rd, 1876, at Olympian Springs, Bath County, Kentucky, flakes of a substance that looked like beef fell from the sky, in quotation marks, from a clear sky, in quotation marks. We'd like to emphasize that it was said that nothing but this falling substance was visible in the sky. It fell in flakes of various sizes, some 2 inches square, 1, 3, or 4 inches square. The flake formation is interesting. Later, we shall think of it as signifying pressure somewhere. It was a thick shower on the ground, on trees, on fences, but it was narrowly localized, or upon a strip of land about 100 yards long and about 50 yards wide. For the first account, see the Scientific American, 14-197, and the New York Times, March 10th, 1876. Then the exclusionists. Something that looked like beef, one flake of it the size of a square envelope. If we think of how hard the exclusionists have fought to reject the coming of ordinary looking dust from this Earth's externality, we can sympathize with them in this sensational instance, perhaps. Newspaper correspondents wrote broadcast and witnesses were quoted, and this time there is no mention of a hoax, and except by one scientist, there is no denial that the fall did take place. It seems to me that the exclusionists are still more emphatically conservators. It is not so much it is not so much that they are inimical to all data of externally derived substances that fall upon this earth, as that they are inimical to all data discordant with a system that does not include such phenomena, or the spirit or hope or ambition of the cosmos, which we call attempted positivism. Not to find out the new, not to add to what is called knowledge, but to systematize. Scientific American, Supplement 2-426. That the substance reported from Kentucky had been examined by Leopold Brandeis, Brand and then EIS, in quotation marks. At last we have a proper explanation of this much talked of phenomenon, in quotation marks. Actually, it continues. It has been comparatively easy to identify the substance and to fix its status. The Kentucky wonder is no more or less than Nostoc. So we'll stop there because we have less than a minute left. But I believe I've heard of this one. If not, the amazing thing is, then it is very similar to what I have heard about in other cases. So, yeah, this has been amazing reading through all this, and I like I said, I mentioned that we would get to more than just rain of possibly water and dust. We would get to other things, and so we have. And looking forward to getting deeper into this next time we record one of these episodes. So thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.